April 18, 1942, USS Hornet. 800 miles off the coast of Japan, Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Doolittle stands on the deck of an aircraft carrier, staring at a B-25 Mitchell bomber. A bomber that weighs 16 tons. A bomber that needs 1,500 feet of runway to take off. And he has exactly 467 feet of carrier deck. The math doesn't work. The physics don't work. Every engineer who looked at this plan said it was suicide. But in 90 seconds, Doolittle is going to try anyway. Because 4 months ago, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, and America needs revenge. This is the story of the most impossible takeoff in aviation history, the Doolittle Raid. December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor is burning. The entire Pacific Fleet is at the bottom of the harbor. Thousands of Americans are dead. And President Franklin Roosevelt is furious. He calls his military chiefs to the White House and gives them one order: bomb Tokyo. Not next year. Not when we're ready. Now, but there's a problem. A massive problem. Japan is 6,000 miles from the nearest American airbase. No bomber in the American arsenal can fly that far. Carrier-based fighters don't have the range or the bomb capacity. And even if they did, carriers can't get close enough to Japan without being detected and destroyed. The mission is impossible. For 3 months, nobody can figure out how to do it. Then, in January 1942, a Navy captain named Francis Lowe is visiting Norfolk Naval Base. He sees Army pilots practicing bombing runs on a runway. And painted on that runway is the outline of an aircraft carrier deck. That's when the idea hits him. What if we launch Army bombers from a Navy carrier? It's never been done. The bombers are too big, too heavy, too fast. But Lowe takes the idea to Admiral King anyway. King listens, thinks, then picks up the phone and calls General Hop Arnold, commander of the Army Air Forces. Arnold listens to the plan, pauses, then says one word: Doolittle. Jimmy Doolittle is a legend. He set the world speed record in 1932. He was the first pilot to fly blind using only instruments. He's 45 years old, fearless, and absolutely insane. When Arnold tells him the plan, Doolittle doesn't hesitate. "I'll do it," he says. "And I'll fly the lead plane myself." For the next 3 months, Doolittle trains his crew in secret. They practice short takeoffs. Over and over, pushing the bombers to their absolute limits. They strip everything non-essential from the planes: guns, armor, anything that adds weight. They load extra fuel tanks into every available space. The planes are so overloaded that one miscalculation, one gust of wind, and they'll drop straight into the ocean. On April 2nd, 16 B-25 bombers are loaded onto the USS Hornet. The crew doesn't know where they're going. They're told it's a special mission. It's not until they 1,000 miles out to sea that Doolittle gathers them all and tells them the truth. "We're going to bomb Tokyo." The men erupt in cheers. Every single one of them knows this is a one-way trip, but none of them care. On the morning of April 18th, the plan starts falling apart. A Japanese patrol boat spots the carrier fleet. The boat radios a warning to Tokyo before it's sunk. Doolittle and Captain Mitcher, commander of the Hornet, have a choice: turn back or launch now. 10 hours early, 170 miles farther from Japan than planned, which means the bombers won't have enough fuel to reach their landing sites in China. Every crew will have to ditch or bail out. Doolittle makes the call. We launch. The deck crew scrambles to prepare the planes. The ocean is rough, 30-foot swells. The carrier is pitching up and down. The B-25s are lined up nose to tail. Doolittle's plane is first. If he fails, everyone behind him dies trying. He climbs into the cockpit. His co-pilot, Lieutenant Dick Cole, is pale. "Sir," Cole says, "we've never done this with a full bomb load. Never done this in rough seas." "We've never, I know," Doolittle says. "Start the engines." The flight deck officer stands at the bow, watching the waves. He needs to time this perfectly. If Doolittle launches when the carrier is in a trough, the plane will nosedive straight into the ocean. He waits, watches the carrier rises on a swell. Now, the deck officer drops his flag. Doolittle slams the throttles forward. The B-25 roars down the deck. 467 feet. That's all he has. The bomber is so heavy, it barely accelerates. Cole is gripping his seat, eyes locked on the end of the deck, rushing toward them. They're not going to make it. They're going to slow. They're going to drop off the end and crash into the water and sink and drown, and the nose wheel lifts. Then the main gear. Doolittle pulls back on the yoke. The B-25 clears the deck by 10 feet. For a split second, the bomber dips toward the waves. Cole stops breathing. Then Doolittle pulls her up, climbing, flying, alive. 15 more bombers follow. Every single one makes it off the deck. They fly low across the ocean. So low, they can see the faces of Japanese fishermen staring up at them. At noon, they reach Tokyo. The city is completely unprepared. No air raid sirens, no fighters scrambled. People on the ground wave at the planes, thinking they're Japanese. Doolittle's bombardier releases the bombs. The first American bombs to hit Japan since the war began. They strike an oil refinery, a steel mill, power plants. The damage is minimal, but the psychological impact is enormous. Japan thought it was untouchable. Now American bombers are flying over the Emperor's palace. After dropping their bombs, the raiders turn west toward China, but they're running on fumes. One by one, the planes start running out of fuel. Crews bail out over China, crash land in rice paddies, ditch in the ocean. Doolittle himself parachutes into a Chinese farm field in the middle of the night. He lands in a pile of manure. He's alive, but he's lost all 16 planes, every single one. He's convinced he's going to be court-martialed. Instead, he's awarded the Medal of Honor, promoted 2 ranks to Brigadier General. The Doolittle Raid changed the war. It forced Japan to recall fighter squadrons to defend the homeland. It led directly to the Battle of Midway, where Japan lost 4 carriers and the war turned in America's favor. But most importantly, it proved something that every person watching those bombers take off already knew. Americans don't quit. Even when the math says it's impossible. Even when the odds are 0. You tell an American pilot he couldn't take off from a carrier deck in a bomber that's too heavy and too big and too damn stubborn to fly. He'll do it anyway, just to prove you wrong. That's the story of the Doolittle Raid, the impossible takeoff that changed World War II. Because sometimes, impossible just means nobody's tried it yet. Only 3% of you watching are subscribed. Stories like this deserve to be remembered. Hit that subscribe button. We're rescuing these heroes from history's shadows. Drop a comment with the pilot you want to hear about next. See you in the skies.